Hello everyone and welcome to the third video in my JavaScript for Beginners tutorial series. Now in this video we are going to be talking about conditionals. And conditionals are basically a way to make your code do different things in different situations, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now I'm also going to be going over a little bit of the code I wrote in the previous video and diving deeper and giving you a little bit of a better understanding of what that code does. Now to start, we're going to go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code as in the last video. Hit this Explorer button and then open folder if you are in Mac or Linux, and open folder in WSL if you're on Windows. And then go ahead and open your code folder, which for me it is this one. So in the last video we left off here on this index.js file, and all of this text right here was talking about data structures or data types, my bad. And this is all not really code. This was just for example. So we're going to go ahead and delete this. Now we want to leave these two variable declarations because we will be using them in this video. So conditionals, as I said before, are a way of making your code do different things in different situations. One example of why you might want to do this is, say if you are writing some code for a vending machine. You want the vending machine to essentially check if there has been enough money inserted into the vending machine before it dispenses candy, for example. And the way it does that is it checks with the logic, if I have enough money, then I can dispense. And the keywords in code, at least, are if and then. Those are most often used. So, for example, we're going to go ahead and write a simple conditional here in JavaScript. And I'm going to go ahead and write if age is greater than 18, then we are going to console.log. And don't forget, console.log means print. So we're going to print you are an adult. And then we're going to go ahead and type here else console.log you are not an adult. So we are going to go ahead and leave this here. So what this is essentially saying is the way we do a conditional in JavaScript is we start with if, and then we open up with some parentheses, and inside these parentheses we have something called a condition, and that's where the condition in conditional comes from. So in this case we are checking if age is greater than 18, and what that means is we are checking if age, the value stored inside this variable here, is greater than 18. Then we want to print or actually run the code that's inside these two curly braces. And then what we're writing here is else, and what this means is if this is true, then we will run this, but if it's not true, then we will run this code. And of course we can actually leave out this else here, and all this will mean is if age is greater than 18, then it'll print you are an adult, but if it's not, then it'll simply skip over when it's running the code and it'll go to the next lines. But in the case that we add this else here, it'll print you are not an adult. Now another thing I wanted to get to really quickly was that I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into these variable declarations here. So in JavaScript, like I said, the way you start to declare a variable is you type in let. And that's just the way of telling your code, I want to make a variable. And then the next portion of it is the actual label or the name of the variable. In this case, it's name, and in this case, it's age. And then after that, you want to have an equal sign. In JavaScript, an equal sign means an equality operator, or sorry, it means an assignment operator. And all that means is that it takes what's on the right and it assigns it into what's in the left. So what this means here is we are taking that string, if you remember a string of characters that says Matthew, and we are assigning it into the name variable. So when we say name in the future, in fact, I'm going to change this to my name, for example. We type in my name. What this will actually do is when the code runs, this will actually become Matthew. That's what it'll become, because the value Matthew is inside the my name variable. So for example, in this case, since we set age to equal to 16 and we never change it, then when the code runs, it'll be saying if 16 is greater than 18, and it's not, so it'll run this else here. Now to see this in action, of course, we're going to go ahead and open this index.html, and don't forget, if you go ahead and take a look at the bottom right here, we can click Go Live, and that will open up our website. We right click and hit Inspect to show our console. So you see here our hello world, as always. We print that on the first line. But now we are going to go into this conditional here, and you see it prints you are not an adult. You see you are not an adult. And why is it printing that? Well, we set the age variable to 16, and we are checking if age is greater than 18, which is not true, else, and that's what gets run. You are not an adult, and that's what gets printed. So say we change the age variable to 19, and we save. If we reload here, it prints you are an adult, and that's basically what a conditional is. We are checking if the age is greater than 18, and then it prints this, else it prints this. Now another example would be somewhat similar to that vending machine. So we say let money, for example, equals 3. And then we can say if money is greater than 5, we can say console.log, you have enough money. And then we can say, or for example, let's just not put an else. We can save this here, and we reload, and it doesn't print anything. But that's because we don't have enough money. So if I put money equals 6, and we actually have more than 5, then if I reload, it'll say you have enough money. Now, say we want to have another condition, but we only want that condition to be checked if this condition is not met. So one way I can illustrate that is through this age here. We can say if age is greater than 18, you are an adult. But what if we wanted some more detail here if you're not an adult? We can actually put else, but then we can actually put space and if. And what that means is we are checking another condition if this condition is not true. So in English, we're saying if this is true, then run this. But if it's not true, then we can actually check a different condition. For example, age is greater than 12, meaning 13 through 17. You can say you are a teenager. And then we can finally put an else here, and then console.log, you are a child. And if we reload, and we reload here, it says you are an adult because we have age equal to 19. But if we change it back to 16 like we had it previously, we reload again, it'll say you are a teenager. Now that's because it's checking, is age greater than 18? No. So skip. Else, if age is greater than 12, which it is, it's 16, then it prints this, and it just goes on. Because this chain here is saying if, but if this is not true, then check this. And finally, if both are not true, then run this code. And we don't actually have to do console.logs. In the future, we could do a bunch of different things in each if statement. So this is why conditionals are so useful in our code. Now, I'll show you one more example of conditionals where if statements can get a little bit repetitive, and we actually might want to switch to a different kind of conditional checker. So for example, let's say if we wanted to check what kind of bill someone has, like a dollar bill, a $1 bill, a $5 bill, a $20 bill, we can say let bill equal 5. And so for example, this is a $5 bill. Now, of course, we can say if bill, and then in JavaScript, as you can see here, one equal sign is called the assignment operator. And what that means, again, is we take what's on the right and we assign it into the left. What that means is if we want to check if two things are equal to each other, we can't use one equal sign. We have to use two, and that's called the equality operator. And that's just the way it works in most programming languages to check for equality. So we will go ahead and type if, and then inside these parentheses, which is called the condition, we will type bill is equal to 1. Then we can console.log $1. And then we can say else if bill is equal to 5, we can console.log $5, or $5 and then $1. And then as you can see, we can actually chain more than one else if. We can put as many else ifs as we want. But of course, we can only have one else because the else means finally if all the other ones are not true. So we can say else if bill is equal to 20, or not 2, 20. We can console.log 20. And then finally we can say else if bill is equal to 50, then we can go console.log $50. And then what we can actually do maybe is type in else here, and then type console.log bill not recognized. We go ahead and save that. And honestly, this code would work. The only problem is it's a little bit repetitive and it's a little bit hard to actually update in the future. So if we go ahead and save this and reload here, you'll see it prints $5. Now why is that? Because we set bill to 5 and it's checking if it's 1, which is not true. So it checks if it's 5 and then it found it, so it prints 5 and then it skips the rest of these. So this is fine, but a better way to write this is through something called a switch statement. So in JavaScript, in order to do a switch statement, we type in switch and then open a parentheses like the if statement, and we type in the variable that we want to switch, which is the bill in this case. And a switch basically means that we take what's in this variable and we check for different values. So for example, we could write case 1 and then break on the next line. And that's how you write a switch statement. And then we can write here on this next line, we can write case 5, colon, enter, and then break. And then on the next line, case 20, colon, enter, break. Next line, case 50, colon, enter, break. And then the way we can actually simulate this else here is we can write something called default, colon, break. And what this code is doing here is we are saying switch bill, aka check what's inside the bill variable, and in the case, or if that is 1, then we run this code here. But if it's 5, then run this code. If it's 20, run this code. If it's 50, run this code. And if it's none of these, run this code. Does that sound familiar? It's exactly the same kind of logic that is followed here. The only difference is we would have to copy the console.logs, so we can go Control-C, Control-V, Control-C, Control-V, and so on. And I'm going to go ahead and just actually drag these in here. And in VS Code, you can highlight something, click, and drag it into somewhere else to copy it. And then that essentially saves here, and then we can reload, and you'll see it prints $5 twice, but actually if we remove all of these if statements, it'll print $5 once. So that was the switch statement. It's an alternative to ifs. It basically is a way of writing ifs more cleanly, and it looks nicer, and it's easier to update. Because say we wanted to add $100, all we have to do is case 100, colon, enter, break, and then inside we can console.log $100. And in the past, what we would have to do is we'd have to write an entire else if case, or entire else if bill equals 100, and then opening curly brace, and then console log. It's just a little bit more complicated, and we can achieve it with fewer lines of code. So this has been conditionals. I hope you see how they are a very fundamental concept in programming. They are used in pretty much every programming language, and that's because they allow you to write code that does different things in different situations. Now, in the next video, we are going to be talking about another fundamental concept, loops. For more episodes in this series, or if you happen to miss the previous 2 videos, go ahead and check out the playlist linked in the description where I'll be uploading daily. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and subscribe and hit the bell icon for notifications whenever I upload new videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.